I'm perhaps not the best Catholic in the world by any means, and perhaps could work on it a great deal more. But one thing that was formative in my for my faith was attending school as a child, and the Catholic schools in the area did a fantastic job of educating working class local Catholic children. Hackney's Catholic schools were outstanding in this regard, and many parents sought to get their children there. Now, there's a reason I'm going on about them, and that's this: the fact that sadly, Hackney Council wishes to close some of them. And before I go on further, I'm going to repeat that on the 22nd of this month, the 22nd, there will be a protest outside Hackney Town Hall. And I'm going to urge people who are living in Homerton or Hackney or near any of these schools affected to attend that protest, because Hackney is removing what is an essential lifeline to quality education for local children. These schools provided a really high quality education for children and a moral code, and it served the children that they provided that, something that cannot be replaced easily. I'm going to read this out from the Hackney Citizen. Leave us kids alone. Hackney forges ahead with school closures as families in style protest, by Joseph Steen, local democracy reporter, Wednesday, 29th of January, 2025 at 14:10. Hackney Council has defied backlash from parents, teachers and other stakeholders as it pushes forward with controversial plans to shut and merge 4 primary schools in the borough. Yet Hackney Council is constantly putting up lovely little bits on its Facebook pages about how it wishes to encourage achievement for the youngsters in the borough. Well, I'll tell you what did encourage achievement in this borough when I was a kid. It was schools like St. Dominic's, where I went as a child, where the teachers and clergy who ran the school didn't care that I came from a working class background where my father worked in a factory and my mother was a nurse. They didn't care. They didn't care either if your parents were doctors or lawyers. They only cared to provide you an education, and they were passionate about it. And to them, you were a pupil to be treated with respect so long as you used respect. Something invaluable to the borough will be lost with that school gone. In its final bid to lost whole proposals put forward in the autumn, parents, teachers, and pupils flocked to the town hall on a blustery evening on Monday, chanting, "Hey, Hackney, leave us kids alone." I wish Hackney Council would leave a lot of us alone, because they seem to be more concerned with bizarre agendas that really aren't on the plate for locals. They gathered on the steps out ahead of cabinet members making their decision in the council chamber that evening. Carly Slingsby, a teacher at St. Dominic's Primary, one of the schools earmarked for closure, said regardless of the council decision, she and many others were there to show the community's opposition to the plans and signals that they were not just bricks in the wall. We all know that government funding formula just doesn't work. We should not be putting a price on our school depending based on how many kids in there. It should be about the institution and what it provides. Yes, and what it provided was, as I'm going to repeat it again and again and again, something that cannot be bought. A moral code that children emulate for life. Role models in teachers that were highly skilled and highly sought after, who provided us with role models to emulate throughout our life. You can't buy that. You can't find teachers like that for love of money nowadays. How can the council keep going through this pattern that doesn't work by closing schools? Well, that's easy, because the council doesn't seem to be on the same wavelength as the locals. They seem to like popping up posts on their Facebook pages about cafes. For this year, Callum from the London Renters Union said the council is not pulling out the roots of the problem of dwindling pupil numbers, which he instead argued was caused by the housing crisis. Well, yes, that has a lot to do with it in Hackney. The schools are emptying because working class families can't stay here anymore, and then the funding gets cut. We need to find a way of dealing with that problem because it's happening all over London. Under current council plans, Sir Thomas Abney, St. Dominic's, St. Mary's, and Oldham primary schools could each full closure merge with other schools. And yes, the housing crisis is a real issue, but Hackney Council created a great deal of that itself by a process of gentrification and a process of ignoring locals in search of wonderful concepts and political agendas and crises it created, such as the LTNs and cycling lobbies, which really aren't the concerns of many of the local people, except a minority of people who seem to be connected to those groups. Of course, I'll make people very upset somewhere in Hackney Council by saying that, and I don't mind doing so. But I'm going to end by saying I urge people to attend the protest on the 22nd outside the town hall. If you are a pupil at any of these schools, the more of you turn up, the more impact you will have, the more annoyance you will be, the more you will show that there's a real negative feeling about these schools being closed.